wrecking yard, echoes of laughter.
Welcome to the Wrecking Yard. I'm Jerry Wayne Longmire, and y'all are presumably still y'all. Of course, we always hope we have new eyes and ears. All are welcome in the Church of Internal Combustion, even if you just show up for the cars you like. It's like them. It's like them folks that only go to church on Easter. You still belong here, right? Just if you don't know the words of some of the songs and who some of the people are talking on, just clap along and try to follow along the best you can. The only thing you do need to do is show up with an open heart. Especially today, if you're a Ford fan, this might feel a little vicious. Today, we're going to talk about the worst vehicle I've ever owned Yeah, today we're going to talk about a clearly cursed 1991 F250 with a 351 Windsor and a very black heart. For that, let's shout out our sponsors. The Wrecking Yard is brought to you today by our good friend Happy Jack Slavinka, and he wants to give away some of his comics. He's doing so because he's hoping to get enough followers and big enough email list to do a crowdfunding campaign as he continues to make comic books. His comics are called Track Tales. You get 2 full stories, and it's great stuff, man. It's fun. It's like Calvin and Hobbes and meets Garage Tales type stuff. It's about a dude working on cars with his dad, and we all like talking about that, thinking about that. And if I love art, and if a comic might get a kid interested in cars, then I'm all for it. So definitely email your address to be entered for the giveaway. Email your address. I'll put the email address somewhere right in here, right, and I'll pin it in the chat, and I'll pin it at the top of the comments. But yeah, email Jack and send him your address and tell him you want the comic giveaway. And also go follow him at Happy Jack Savinka at 55. Oh, I read that wrong. At Happy Jack Savinka 5560 on YouTube. He's got a community post over there with all the rules for everything. And I think he's giving away like 5 copies. And I'm not sure when the deadline is yet, but I think it's probably like running up on us about a month. But yeah, it's like Calvin and Hobbes meets 70s car culture, so check it out. Also, we still have the Everyone Racers podcast showing up. I don't know why I went that way. It's not over there. It's over here. The Everyone Racers podcast. And, it's a whole show about amateur endurance racing. It's 4 friends. Sometimes they team up. They race together. They travel all over the country doing some of the toughest kind of racing there is. And they're great at telling stories about it and kind of taking you on the journey with them. So make sure you check them out. Everyone Racers podcast and all the normal podcast places. Hell yeah, man. I think I'm getting better at that. I know as much about advertising as I do about high strength polymer nanocastings. But I do want the folks to advertise with me to get the bang for the buck and feel like I actually paid attention to what they're doing and whatnot. I know that after that intro, some of y'all are sitting there with a brick nose in your driveway just waiting to tell me what a Sun 50 I am for daring to say anything untoward about that generation Ford. I feel you, brother. I have no outward dislike for brick noses. Honestly, I've owned and operated several. And it was Papa Longmire's favorite truck. That's what he liked. Papa Longmire loved a brick nose Ford. He had 2 of them. Kept them never burned a drop of oil. Immaculate condition. This isn't about all brick noses. But just for this story's sake, I spent some time thinking about this. Sorry, my foot was stuck between my chair and my desk. Big ass feet. Just for this story, for today's sake, let's just assume these few things, right? First, let's assume my truck was built on the Monday after Super Bowl. It's also assumed the A team called in sick, but then the B team did too, and the union rep had to get on the phone with the A team's like, hey, I don't care if you're drunk still or not, get you some coffee, get your ass to work. And then the A team grumbling and pissed off at their boss, and probably all of the Ford Motor Company showed up to assemble my 1991 F-250. Then it's also assumed that the Guatemalan dude named Ernest that sold it to me didn't have an electrical engineering degree or any experience with a voltmeter before he decided he could just fix what was wrong with the fuel injection harness with some masking tape and hope and wires from other vehicles. Lastly, to truly understand this truck, we also have to assume that one of those hungover, pissed off, drunk workers that got called in to build it somehow made a mistake and got killed in the making of this truck, thereby haunting it forever with just like an incompetent, hungover spirit. This ain't about brick noses. This is about the worst truck ever made. Damn, it looked good to me when I seen the listing on it, though. Man, I'm probably gonna say this a couple times, but just don't buy a car at night, bro. Just don't do it. Well, I can't tell you. It's sometimes this is like in the early spring. This is like the early spring of 2010. We're living in this little neighborhood in Spring, Texas, called Bridgemont, right off 2920, and I'm gonna jump back and forth out of the beginning of this year and such, but to kind of tell you where I was at when I bought this truck. Well, we'll just get off into it. Never mind. I don't want to skip ahead like that. But I told y'all about this house in the Mazda story. You know, it's where my neighbor Skip, it's where Skip lived, and I don't remember if I told you about my other neighbor. His name was John, but he was like the real life living quagmire, and he was a great dude. He grew good tomatoes, and brothers, women just loved that man. He worked for FedEx or something or UPS. He always had his truck parked at his house, and boy, the amount of khaki women that just came to see him, it was wild. Man, but he was just the nicest guy in the world. I always really, really liked him. Great neighbor. There was an interesting place to live. There were some other things going on, you know. Now, before I had this Ford truck, so what had happened is a little while after that, and I may dig off all into that, but a little while after Hurricane Ike and all that stuff, um, after Hurricane Ike, I started working out at this property in Conroe to make money, and I started working out there with my good buddy Steve. And then my buddy Steve was drinking a lot and stuff, and they decided they were going to cut one of us loose. They were going to cut me loose, and Steve said, "No, I don't want to do this anymore." He wanted to go back to building houses, so he went back to building houses. And I worked out there for a fellow named Roy. We called him Big Country. Damned if I can't remember Roy's last name right now. I just always think Big Country when I see him. Roy is a hoss of a human being, man, and a hell of a painter and a drywall man to boot, and just a big old dude. You know, even when he's slim, he's a big old dude. He played, I think he played college ball. You know, just big old guy. Boy, you watch Roy paint a house, it's the coolest thing in the world. He don't need no ladder. He just walk around with a shield. Oh boy, can paint. Hell of a drywall man. Really good craftsman. Really everything he does is great. Uh, Always liked Roy a whole lot. And Roy was very kind to me as a boss. He did a number of kindnesses to me a number of times and worked me like a mule, but also was a pretty kind boss. And I learned a lot while I was working for him. And enough at some point that the property decided they wanted him to set up his business differently in order to keep that contract, and he didn't want to do it. And so I didn't want to lose my job out there, so I just sort of, after talking to him, sort of positive, how about I go get a DBA? I start a business, I take over contract since I'm the guy out there doing the work, all this maintenance out at this property, 8 Point South. I was there for a very long time. Long time for me. Am I right? Yeah. Woo! Took some scars at that place. Also made a lot of good friends. Had great connections, and I learned a lot about how to be a businessman, which helps me a lot more in comedy now than it did when I tackled comedy the first time. You know, tackled comedy the first time, I was just dummy, didn't know anything about anything. Got taken advantage of and screwed myself out of a number of opportunities, just being dumb, making bad choices. And we'll sit that there right now. But Roy was kind to me. He's a good dude, and when he helped me, basically helped me get that contract, and that's how I started my business. Was around the early part 2010, maybe the end of 2009. He's good people. Roy's real good people, man. Um, he helped me buy some tools cheap. He taught me where to get some deals on tools. He taught me where to buy good concrete tools, that could take a beating every day. Taught me a lot about concrete. I learned a lot of concrete on my own later, but he taught me a lot about drywall and painting. Really sharp guy, really good at his craft. Has a really wonderful wife named Kathy, and Miss Kathy is a doll. I just love Miss Kathy, and very, very thankful to have met those people in my life. I met them through Steve. Steve and his brother used to do work for him, and that's how he got the job up there. But it's when I first took that job, right? I was working out of a Honda Accord. I was that dude. I had this old '92 Honda Accord, and I was strapping ladders on that son 50 and everything, and had it loaded down with tools, and then it got to the point where I'm taking over business. I need a little pickup. You need a little pickup to do kind of work like that, or a little SUV, something capable of carrying some stuff and some materials. But I didn't have a big budget, so I went out and there's this little place north of Conroe, Walnut Cove, something like that. Seven coves, seven walnuts. I don't remember what it is. One of them dumb lake names. Dude had a little '93 Dodge Dakota with a V6 and a 3900 Magnum, I think was what it was. Automatic, little 2-wheel drive truck. Had about 200,000 miles on it, and the interior was a little rough, a little worn in. It had milk crates all in the bed, mini truck milk crates all in the back, bungee corded, full of various items, including starting fluid and carburetor cleaner and air cleaner, just whatever. He sold me that little pickup $450, running driving. We started talking at about 600, and we ended up at 450. And no, we started at 550. We ended up at 450, and we both felt pretty good about it. I left that little pickup. I bet you wouldn't feel good about it now, considering what those little trucks call these days. But I had that little Dakota, and that was just the start of my business. That's how I started my business. We're living in the spring in that little house, and Rachel had Mazda, and most places went in a Mazda, but we had our little dog then. We had a dog for about 14 years, named Tina, and I ain't talked about her much. Maybe I have a couple times, but she's a little Jack Russell, man. She's climb up. Little Tina would sit on that little console by me, and I'd drive my. I love that little Dodge Dakota. I was proud of it. Clean looking little truck on the outside, for the most part. Had some whiskey bumps on it. A couple scratches from bungee cords and throwing wood on it and stuff. But once I got it cleaned up, she actually didn't look too bad. And the whole time I had that Dodge Dakota, I'm gonna tell you this: it was probably a good 6 or 7 months before my business, or a good 5 or 6 months before my business started growing, and some other things happened that I felt the need to get rid of the Dakota and go to something a little bigger. But one of those things that happened is when we were trying to get pregnant. Look, let me tell you something, man. This guy fresh after Hurricane Ike, right? Like, I'm married, I'm learning some stuff, bro, but I'm still the guy that wrecked his motorcycle because he didn't want to listen to his father-in-law, right? Like, that dude's still very much driving the bus at this point. And, and we started trying to get pregnant. For whatever reason, we thought we were ready for that. And we were in love. I guess that's enough sometimes. But we were trying to get pregnant and not having much luck in the very beginning. And so we decided that I decided I was going to try these supplements that were supposed to help your fertility and your testosterone, thinking maybe it's my fault because I put on some weight, whatever, just thought maybe it's me, you know? You always, I think most people begin to assume it's them in situations like that. And ours didn't go on for a real long time, but it turns out it was easily solved. Turns out we just had to go old fashioned a little bit. But it when I was taking these things, I already had enough testosterone. All right. I had plenty, clearly. Because when I take these things, boy, they would just push me to a new level of FU, basically. A very strong position, constant position of FU to anything that I deemed authoritative or going to tell me what to do. I guess that's authoritative. Still pretty young, Got a lot of fire in the groin, little fire in the patch down there. I'm still quick. When I took them things, boy, they did not affect me in a good way. And I know this because one day I left for work in that little Dodge Dakota. I was working in Conroe. I left for work, realized I forgot something, come back to the house to get it. So I was there, and right by our house, there was like a little stop sign. And then when you left the stop sign, our driveway was like the second driveway. So I was coming down the road from this way, and there was a guy at the stop sign. And I pulled into my driveway because I knew I wasn't going straight or going to have to mess with him. He was already at a stop sign. And I jumped out of my truck, and dude slowed down. He's in one of these little, I don't know what it was. It was a Subaru, maybe it was a Honda Civic. I don't, there's some old Japanese, German, Fast and Furious samurai go kart. That's all I know. It was all decked out and stickers, and fella looked like he's about 20 years old, about my size. Baseball cap on backwards, little facial hair, not much. You can tell he's young. And he starts cursing at me. He pulls up right in my driveway, starts cursing me and telling me what some 50 I am and everything for cutting him off and all that stuff. And I snapped. I jumped. I started running after him. He took off. I couldn't run fast. I jumped in that Dodge Dakota, threw that bugger in reverse. I was heading down that street after him like a lunatic. I follow him out of the neighborhood, and there's like a little field outside that neighborhood at the time, and he's a little ways ahead of me. He's trying to cut and go left on a little side street, and I just took through the field in that Dodge Dakota and cut him off right up against a curb and a light pole. He didn't hit it, but he had to stop because there wasn't nothing else but truck and light pole. I put it on him. I hopped out of that truck, and he wouldn't get out of the car. And I was hot, boy. I wanted him to get out of that car. And he finally got out, and then he started running around the car. So I took a claw hammer out of the back of my truck and knocked the driver mirror right off his car. And told him he better start playing games with grown folks because he'll get treated like one. Clearly acting like a bully, just being a dick. No reason for that. That's psychotic, man. Miracle he didn't pull a gun out and shoot me. You know, I would have. That stuff did not make me in my right mind, so I quit taking it very quickly. But then, I'm not going to go into a big discussion about this. We'll talk about it another time. It's neither here nor there. But at the time, I may or may not have had a suspended driver's license and was trying to work that out with a various number of state law enforcement agencies that had decided that I shouldn't have one. because unpaid tickets mostly, nothing big, no criminal, no running from Johnny Law or anything like that. Just I get a ticket, wadded up, throw it in the back seat, and then all the states decided to start agreeing with each other and took my license away. Before that, they didn't have all that reciprocity. But I found myself in quite the pickle because I still need to earn a living. So, and move forward with my life, And most of it was just, it took like 10 years to get my license cleared up because of just mostly bureaucratic crap. It wasn't like we would get the money and we would pay one agency and then have to go over here and pay the state a little money. And if you've ever been through it, you've been through it. If you haven't, good on you, bro. Good on you for paying your tickets and being an upright citizen. This is not the route I took. I don't recommend my route. My route was stupid. Anyways, I may not have had a driver's license at this time. I think I didn't have a driver's license. And I had insurance, all the other stuff you're supposed to have. I was trying not to ride any dirty good inspection, registration, I was trying to play the role. That's why cops would let me go all the time back then. Like, I would just tell them, like, I'm trying to get it back, but I got to go to work. And usually I wasn't getting pulled over for doing anything stupid. It was like a brake light out or something I didn't notice. So they were cool with me. And I was always very friendly and polite with them for the most part. But that had happened in that Dodge. I had acted like a fool and realized, hey, supplement's making me crazy. Don't do this. And then maybe a month or two later, that truck was such a good little truck. And the whole time I owned that Dodge, you know what I did? I did a set of front brakes on it. I think that's it. I think it's a set of front brakes. I'm not trying to lie to you or gild the lily, polish the turd here. I think that's all I did was a set of front brakes. I'm just trying to be straight and clean it up, change oil, that kind of stuff. But I think it was just a good little truck. Did exactly what I needed to do. I mean, I did need something a little bigger when, because I was about to be in that situation where you're about to start renting trailers and such. And that little Dakota, I was up there in April Sound one day. I was way home, and there's a lot of drunk realtors, or there used to be in April Sound. They would do these wine parties, and these realtors get out there in their Cadillacs and their Lincolns, and they were just a menace. One of them jumped into the second floor of the country club. They had to put a giant metal concrete golf ball up there to keep it from ever happening again, from finding a Mercedes parked in the second floor of that country club. Uh, that is not an untrue story. I fixed so many condos and houses. These ladies coming home from the wine tasting would just, oh, I thought I hit the brake, and woo, just torpedo a Lincoln right off into their garage. It's crazy, man. So that's what happens. I'm coming down April Sound, the main road, and one of these lit realtors in her Lincoln just T-bones the piss out of me. Like, I don't know where she's going. There wasn't another road on the other side, but she was just going straight through the roads. Hit me while I was going down the road through the median. Like, it was the wildest thing. Jumped out. She was clearly lit. And I was like, I'm not about to go to jail over you. And you hit me. My truck's okay. Your Lincoln's trashed. It tore that Panther up. I told her, hey, it's no big deal. I ain't got time to stick around. Are you okay? She said, yeah, I'm fine. Do you need, you want to switch? I was like, we don't even need to switch insurance. We just need to let bygones be bygones and go on with our lives. And she was cool with that because she was lit. She's going to have to go home and, explain to her insurance what happened to her car. That's on her. I didn't want Johnny Law out there, especially at my job, So I had that little accident, but I still was worried. I was worried the cops were going to come looking for me about that wreck. I was paranoid about it. And, yeah, I was just paranoid about it. So I decided to sell the Dakota. I still had the Honda. We still had the Mazda. I decided I would sell the Dakota and the Honda. Also, I think the Dakota's transmission was maybe start to slip a little. It had almost 300,000 miles on it. Or no. It had like 270, 280 by then, 260, somewhere in there. I mean, I put some miles on it. I run this truck hard. That's not the one the transmission was acting up on. That old truck was just fine. It was just getting old, and I needed to pull trailers and crap like that. And they won't even let you rent a trailer at the, Sun Belt unless you got 3/4 ton. So I put them up both for sale. I ended up selling that Dakota for like $1,400 or something stupid. I listed it that high as like a gimme, like a hey, a place to start or just kind of fish the waters. And literally, the first guy that showed up and looked at the Dakota and the Honda said, "I think there's something wrong with that Honda." Well, the Honda had a brand new transmission, so I knew there wasn't nothing wrong with the Honda. So I was like, "No, the Honda's fine." And he bought the Dakota, which Dakota had nearly 300,000 miles on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's not still driving around somewhere. It was a good little truck. I sold the Honda. Some little gal come. I sold my Honda about $1,700, but I had about $500 in it. Wasn't a big deal. It was good. And I found that Ford where you find most cursed things at. Okay. In the meantime, I will tell you this. In the meantime, that took place over some time. In the meantime, me and Rachel, we got pregnant. We're expecting our first. My business was growing. I was getting bigger and better jobs and on the side and stuff too, and more responsibilities at work because I'd taken on this contract. And more money. So I had a little more scratch to work with. And I found that Ford where you find most cursed things on the Craigslist. Ain't nothing any good has ever happened on Craigslist late at night. But that is what happened. I was idly searching, pickups, and a big old pretty brick nose popped up, blue and white two tone. And I don't got many pictures of it. I didn't take a lot of pictures of stuff back then. I got one or two, but yeah, I remember seeing it and well, like that, had his black wheels. It was a cool looking machine. I was into it right off the bat. Uh, did nostalgia bite me in the ass there? I think probably so. Uh, Papa Lomar always drove brick. He had brick noses. I'm sure there's a little bit of me won't be, be a little bit like Papa Lomar. Give me a good old brick nose truck. I ain't never burned a drop of oil. That's not what I got. It's not what I got. Hell, it had the Windsor in it. I was like, that's a hot rod engine right there. Boy, I tell you, if I ever see a 351 Windsor again in life, it'll be too soon. I might holler. Cash in hand, bro. I called my brother Joey up. I said, man, let's go to Bay City. Let's go meet this guy Ernest. Let's look at this truck. I'm gonna tell you this. I knew I was gonna buy that truck when I got in Joey's car. I had cash money in my hand. I already wanted it. Ernest didn't sell that truck. I sold that truck to myself. Don't do that. You gotta be real careful buying vehicles nostalgic wise. You gotta be real savvy. Don't just be careful. It was a nostalgia purchase. I went. I knew I was going to buy that truck when I left. The other most important rule: car buying. Never buy a car at night. There ain't enough flashlight in the world to keep you from disadvantage. Don't ever do it. If you already did it, don't do it again. You gotta love it. And also, if I ever see Ernest again, it'll be whooping on sight, or me getting my ass whooped trying to give him that whooping. He's a pretty big old boy. But I bought that truck from him that night, and me and Joey, he followed me back to the house with made all the way to Bay City. Drove good. It was a manual transmission, granny. I think it had granny gear. 2-wheel drive. Drove good coming home that night. I was feeling pretty good about my purchase, you know. And I was excited, man. Now I don't tell you that thing ride. Look, them big old tires on it. You put them all the way up that 75 psi. That thing ride like a buck wagon, son. It beat you to death. You better not have no kidney issues. You set foot in one of them. That 3/4 ton booger. That thing would beat you to death. Even go down the highway. I remember coming up 288 that night. That thing, I was like, "Ooh, that's a little rough." Man, I'll tell you this. Uh, first time Rachel rode in that truck, it gave her Braxton Hicks contraction. She thought she was going into labor. The damn ride was so rough. That thing would, woo, that thing would wear you out, son. 2 days after I get it, I got Tina in the truck with me. We're making a run down to the donut shop and get some kolaches. That was our little run we would make on Saturday mornings. Get the donut shop, hit the brakes, brake pedal goes to the floor, truck keeps rolling. I jam it down in first gear and shut the engine off, and we bang up against the little poles. Thank God there was poles. We bang up against the little poles. We scared the piss out of a couple people trying to buy their donuts. Sure, they tell a different version of that story than I do. Quite sure. It's Thursday night here, in case you wondered. Recording a little earlier because I was supposed to take a day off Monday. That's usually my day off. Monday's usually my day. That's my day. I kind of, I go to the gym and I play video games and I do stuff for me and the kids. I play games with my kids and basketball, whatever. Just hang out with family, watch movies, whatever. That's our weekend. When you work all weekend making people laugh, when it's your turn to be off, that's what you do. Well, my wife and the kiddos went to visit her friend and go swimming in the pool and all that good stuff. Have a good time at a little resort place. And I was supposed to stay home and veg out and not do stuff. I wouldn't feel it. My back was hurting pretty. I'm not gonna go there. My back was hurting. I didn't feel like it. So, um, but what I did instead was work all day, making content and writing stuff and working on the wrecking yard stuff because I knew her friend was going to be visiting. We're going to have other stuff happening, and I wanted to be able to be present and go do some stuff. And her friend, I consider a friend too. They've been friends for many years, but her and her husband, I find to be pretty delightful. They're who I got my little John Deere lawnmower from. They're good people. They've got a they've bought themselves an RV and they're traveling around Texas. And she brought it down to hang out and see Rachel. They're out on the porch right now. I can hear them cutting up and laughing, and it puts a smile on my face. To be honest with you, because my wife works all the time, and it's nice to see her get to cut loose and have some fun with her friends. She don't get to see us often as I know she'd probably like to. So it makes me smile. So if you see me smile every once in a while, it's because I hear them laughing or whatever. I do have. I'm drinking coffee. I do have a little Kentucky creamer in it. It's been a busy day. I did the gym this morning, and also Thursdays are the days that I take my kid to vocal lessons. And on those days, when we drive down there, we got to drive down to Friendswood. It takes like an hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm sure you heard me talk about it before. And we have a duet list, and we sing duets all the way down there and back. And it's just our thing we do. Right? We have a good time. We got a little Kenny Rogers on there. We got it all. We got some cool stuff. We do a hell of a rendition of "Going to Jackson" by Johnny and June, of course. And I won't get all that dust and crap on me. Anyway, it's Thursday night, so to get back to why I'm recording on Thursday night is because after my wife found out I worked all day Monday when I was supposed to be chilling out, she has rightfully demanded I take a day off tomorrow. And we are going to go to the water park with kids, and swim, and have us a good time. I'm a water baby. I love to swim. Don't get near enough opportunities anymore. So that's going to be fun. Anyways, yeah. So the brakes go out at the donut shop, right? That's how you crap on Saturday at 8 o'clock in the morning. Also, then you go to the parts place and you find out the big difference between. And you remember you've been through this before, like, oh, 3/4 ton parts and Dodge Dakota parts are not in the same price category, are they? They're not. They are not. 1/4 ton parts are decidedly more expensive. You're gonna run with the big boys. I'm sure they have some dumb rhyme about that I don't know right now. Yeah. So the master cylinder's jacked on the truck, so I gotta do the master cylinder. It's not the worst job in the world, and you gotta bleed all the brakes. So of course you go ahead and do all the brakes, right? And it's a hefty little price tag when you're done. Of course, you find out you got some bad brake lines. Might as well go ahead and fix those because you don't want any more problems down the road. You think I'm sorting this truck's problems out. That's what you think. Life goes on. We settle into a rhythm, and you think when you get pregnant, didn't mean to spit on it, but you think when y'all get pregnant that it feels like it's when you're like, oh, it's 9 months away. It feels like that's a long time, but it goes fast. And I'm sure a bunch of you done it. It goes real fast, real fast. It's it's the whole thing with kids is how fast it happened. People would tell me that, and I was like, okay, I get it. It's fast, but it speeds up at some point. I got teenagers. This is wild, man. We got pregnant, and it went fast, and it was. I'm going to Rachel's. Rachel had some medical problems with the pregnancy that was making it difficult, and it made her have a very hard pregnancy, and we were also trying to get the house ready for a baby, and you know we had to move one of the cats outdoors because they couldn't use the litter box, and we had to get rid of one of the cats because that cat got kind of aggressive and weird. And but Big Kitty, I made him a nice house, and he lived in the backyard. He was declawed, so he just hung out back there. He's arthritic, and he just couldn't make it to the litter box anymore. You know, he'd get about a foot away and drop a load. That's just the best he could do. So you gotta live outside when that happens. I'm sorry, that's really for anybody. If my kids start crapping on the floor, they're gonna go live outside. I mean, just I don't have a lot of rules, but that's one. You don't get to poop on the floor. Nobody gets to poop on the floor. If I don't get to poop on the floor, nobody gets to poop on the floor. Not if I'm the guy swinging a hammer, paying the bill. You know. And it wasn't even like that. Rachel was actually making a crap ton of money at this time because Rachel started a children's clothing line because she was so inspired by her pregnancy and the fact she was going to be a mom, and she was excited about it. And she's always been creative. And I mean, she was doing big orders with like Lululemon or something like that. I don't know. One of those big online places stuff. These crazy baby onesies she was making and all this stuff. And she was making bank, bro. And I was doing pretty good too. We were fixing a lot of old problems. I told you, I was working on my license. I was trying to become an upstanding citizen. I had insurance on every one of my vehicles. This guy, JW, young JW, had insurance on every one of his vehicles. Made that payment every month. He had it. He was trying, but he was still that guy. And that's the thing, man. People tell you this gets said a lot where I grew up. Boy, he'll grow up when he has a kid. That's what he needs to do. He needs to have a kid. That'll grow him up. I don't know how many times I heard that. Well, he needs to have a kid. That'll grow him up. I said, well, I kept waiting. I kept waiting. I thought there was going to be some revelation somewhere in that 9 months. I thought it was going to be like a, that movie. Is that movie? What's that movie with John Travolta where he gets hit with the lightning? I thought it was going to be like that, like Phenomenon. I mean, I know he has a brain tumor at the end. That sucks. But I mean, the first part, the revelation. I thought there was going to be this thing, and it wasn't. There never was. There never was. Right up till the day I remember that morning, Rachel couldn't sleep. They had decided to induce pregnancy because she was past due. It was time to have this baby. She was miserable. We were doing all the stuff, try to make it happen. I offered to take her for a ride in the Ford again. She turned me down. That Ford would have got that baby there, I think. I think right around that time is when we bought that little Toyota Matrix. So we had the Matrix, I think, when we brought Junie. No, I guess it was still the Mazda. Anyways, don't matter. But it came. The 9 months came and went. Boom. Time to be a daddy. Figured out, son. Of course, I was getting all the wisdom from men whose opinions I value. At the time, I had just recently met Mr. Bob. Mr. Bob was becoming a good friend, good mentor to me. Told you all the story about the first time I met Mr. Bob in that old Ford truck. We're gonna talk some more about Mr. Bob today because there's a lot of stories about him. In his time, man, he was a big part of my life. He mentored me a bunch. He gave me wisdom about being a father. He gave me wisdom about fixing my situation. He knew my stuff. I was very open with him. He was giving me wisdom, trying to figure out how to fix up some of my screw ups. Move into this next part of my life. But I never had this big moment, right? I just grew up. That didn't happen. And that baby, she just kept on coming, whether I was ready or not, whether any of us was. We were set to induce labor at 5 in the morning over at the hospital in the Woodlands. And it stormed all night. Stormed like a woo, buddy. Like you ain't never heard. It was June 3rd, 2010. Woo, it stormed. Stormed like Vikings out there fighting. My brother Bart texted me. He knew we were going to induce labor. He said, he's going out here. He said at the time he's a Christian now, but he was a pagan at the time. And he said in their beliefs, a heavy storm before a child comes is usually some sort of indicator that the child's going to be strong and good, healthy child. We went to the hospital. Turns out Rachel was already in labor when we got to the hospital. Turned out that whoever it is that makes those decisions for us had made it. And I didn't think that was going to make me feel like that thinking about this, but if you've been a dad, there's all this crap that happens right before they get here, and then they're just here. This is horrible crap. This Rachel's blood pressure was going up and down. It was scary. My father and my mother were there, and her mother and her father were there. They had my back, but it was scary. And I was trying to just stand tall, No matter what happens, I got to stand tall. Whatever happens in that room, how much I can do anything about it right now. I think that's when I remembered how to pray, to be honest with you. I know I went without praying for a long time. And then all I can tell you is that since my kids have been here, I pray all the time. I think that's when I remembered. I was frightened. She had this daggum, what you call it? What's that guy that does the paralyzer shot? Anesthesiologist, maybe. They're coming in to do that spinal thing. This guy was such a prick. Old Doc Hollywood. He wouldn't get off his phone to talk to her. Then he hurt her back. She still has a ton of pain from what he did. It was just a rude, crappy way to treat somebody who's about to bring life into the world. Bedside manner was garbage. I, of course, like many young men who don't know what to do with their emotions, turned to anger. I wanted to beat this man with my fists. I wanted to find out where he lived. My father was good counsel for me at the time, and her father was good counsel because they were both also very, very angry at the way daughter daughter-in-law was being treated. But they were good counsel to me at that time, and that's all needs to be said about that. And they helped me focus on what would be really helpful to Rachel, and that's just being there for her and taking care of her. And I was thankful. They took up my rage for me and helped me concentrate on helping her. She was going through this thing. And the guy that makes the not the guy that makes the babies, that was me. But optometrist? Nope, that's not it. What is the guy? Anyways, you know, kind of obstetrician, maybe. I don't know. That's the last stab I'm gonna take at it. The guy that delivered the baby, Dr. Williams, in the Woodlands. I don't know if he's still practicing. He was kind of a middle aged guy then. He was an ex Navy guy. One of the best doctors there. I really liked him. I love Dr. Williams. Delivered both of my kids, and I have nothing but positive things to say about Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams took very good care of my wife, and also would speak to her and helped her through the whole process, and was just a great doctor. So, if you had the pleasure of having your children delivered by Dr. Williams, you probably know what I'm talking about. He was good people, good dude, always willing to answer questions and take a minute to speak with his patients, and I always really appreciated that about him. And once he got there, everything got better. I ain't gonna say it happened all quick, but about 5 o'clock in the evening, our little booger bear was there. Boy, her little, she's there, and it was amazing. I cried and bawled in front of my daddy and held my baby and loved on my other baby and told her what a great job she did. It was all kind of a blur. I don't remember a lot of it. I just been crying a lot, being filled with all these intense, deep emotions. Not quite sure what to do with them yet, you know, as often young people are not. Still no revelation. So what I needed to do. I know I got weirdly territorial. I was scared of everybody coming around my house and people acting up and stuff. And I don't think that's too loud on the mic, so I'm going to do that right. At least I know it works on there pretty good. It's all right. Weirdly, wildly territorial. You're ferocious when that first one's born. Well, you better not come around my house acting a fool. I'm father now. I don't know. I don't know if I was pretending I knew what I was doing based on what I'd seen other people do. I got just enough time off work for her to be born, and to be born and get Junie home, and then I had to go back to work. You know, that's how it is when you're blue collar. You're lucky you get off the day they're being born, especially if you're traveling work. Immediately after that, like Literally, after getting home and getting to know my newborn a little bit, having to go back to work, my truck breaks down at work that day. Starts vapor locking. Never had a fuel injection truck vapor lock in my life. But that thing vapor locks and leaves me stranded. And it's about an hour or two before I get the thing started up. Puts me behind, costs me some money. I do some digging around the truck, decide the fuel pump is bad. And over that weekend, I dropped the fuel tank. I think my brother Joey came over and helped me. We dropped fuel tank. We put a fuel pump. No, Skip. Skip came over and helped me. Skip was a good neighbor. Skip came over and helped me, or talked to me at least while I did it. Kind of schooled me a little bit on it. Change out the fuel, put a new fuel pump in it. Of course, I'm learning how to do all kinds of stuff at work. I'm taking on bigger projects than I ever had before. And I'm also learning about hiring helper. I'm having to hire people to work for me first time. And I'm learning that not everybody knows the things I just assumed they should know. We get out to property one day, and I heard this young man who I told you has passed on, old Dylan, young Dylan. He's a good dude. I like the kid. He would work hard for me. He was a good worker. We had to do this job on the property. So on the end of those condos, all the electric boxes were in one big box. I'm sure you've seen it on apartment complexes and stuff like that. And it's a big old panel and box and such. And the wood behind it had gotten rotten. Water had got back there, got rotten on the sheath, and people were getting leaks in their condos and stuff, and mildew and all that kind of crap. So what we had to do is we had to have our electrician, Andy, my buddy Andy Gray. He's a great electrician. Come out there and he unhooked that whole box. We turned everybody's power off. He unhooked that whole box and he brought it out, swung it out so that we could change all the plywood behind there. Of course, we tore all the old plywood down and we got the new plywood ready and we set it up there. And now, I had this mistake one time. I did this to Steve when I was a helper. I don't know why I didn't think about it because almost same situation. I did this to Steve one time when I was a helper. And because I'd worked for him and his dad for a little while and his brother. And I didn't think about it. I told that kid, I said, we got it up there and we marked on the boards above where all the where the power cords were coming down and where the studs were. I said, so I told him we cut the new wood, we put the new wood up there. I said, mark the studs. We just kind of tacked it in place on the corners. I said, mark all the studs, and I'll come up there and I'll get on a ladder with my brand new Ryobi drill, and I'll put all these 3-inch screws in there and suck this plywood up, get it all looking nice and tight. So he marks them for me. And he marks 2 lines and some squiggly stuff, right? Like zigzaggy, like it might mean electric. And then he marks the other lines all around. They're all over the place because the way this wall is built is weird. It's not like a regular studded out wall. Well, I got a bug fussing about here. Give me just a sec. Maybe I can walk this fool. No. Get on, son. Important business going on here. We'll come back later. He marked the damn boards wrong. That's what happened. What he marked that I thought was daggum stud, and what looked to me was don't put screws here because it's electrical. Turned out to be studs, and then just clear straight lines was where the electrical was, which is where how you normally indicate stud. Remember, not thinking about people don't know stuff you don't know. And I hop up on that ladder, my 3-inch screw. Wow! Boy. Well, I tell you, I tasted metal in my mouth for a week. I come off that ladder. That drill spun so fast. Zee! Sound like a motorcycle. It's fun. And after that, that drill, every time you use it, smell like ozone. Every time you fire that drill up, I think it nearly cooked them brushes. Knocked me off. I don't know what. I think maybe I don't remember what the bolt. I don't want to guess. It was enough to knock me off the ladder, knock the piss out of me, and make me think a little better about what to tell my helpers in the future. What are you ballsy, bro? You gonna come around here and get squashed in a minute? Get the man's whiskey, coffee. It's also about this time. You have a dad. You stop wanting to be around for some of the stuff you were around, and I told you I was taking them hydrocodone pills all the time, but my buddy Steve he was going down a dark road on it, and he wasn't coming back. He wasn't. Didn't look like he was making any plans on slowing down anytime soon. He'd just had a kid, and stuff happened. I'm not going to get into, but it made me feel like sometimes we had a conversation, and we decided to go our separate ways as friends. Sometimes friends are on a different trajectory, and trajectory he was on was not what I wanted to be on. I don't think he wanted to be on the one I was on. There's a lot of wild stuff, like I said, you get territorial when you have a kid, and you're just working all the time, and you're like, oh, I don't want anybody getting in the way of me and my kid, and these are those days when you're working, your kid's so small that you come home and they're a different size because you've been at work so long. You know what I mean? They're growing so fast at this time. One night, Wednesday night or something, bro, right outside our window, right across the street, lived a lady and a man and her kids. He was an older, weird dude that wore a straw hat and worked for the city doing something, but he was an odd duck and was really rude and condescending, not a very polite person. I didn't care much for him. And she was a very nice lady, and she had 3 or 4 children of teenage, I think, for the most part. And they were all pretty good kids. They hung out. They hung out in their yard and partied and had a good time. Not partied, but played and goofed with their friends during the day. Had a good time. They were good kids. We never no problem out of them. But one night, these 2 young black girls were standing in our yard and screaming and hollering stuff at them. And it was like 2 in the morning, and they woke the baby up. And wife's pissed. I'm pissed. What are y'all doing? It's like a weeknight. I go up there. I'm like, get the hell out of here, And like, we don't have to. I was like, can you at least? I was trying to get them quiet down. And the people across the street started being really cool. They're like, yeah, 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 yeah. I was like, it's not about. It's this. They're right by my window, screaming and hollering, man. And these girls start cursing me and say all kind of stuff to me. Whatever. Uh, the lady across the street hollered something about she was going to call their mom or something. I don't remember what the deal was. They bolted. Boom, gone. I go back to bed, pissed off, but don't think nothing about it. 2 days later, after I get home from work, we're just chilling in our house. My newborn, my wife, just having a nice day, and somebody knocking on my door pretty ferociously. I go answer the door, and it's this blonde lady, and she got them 2 girls in the car. They're her kids. And she starts ranting and raving at me about calling them racist slurs, which I did not. And I said that didn't happen. I hollered at him to get out of my yard because it was 2:30 in the morning. And she's like, no, they're in bed by 10 o'clock every night. These kids are lying to their mom. They're teens. Of course they were. I said, no, that ain't what happened. Well, she starts getting real redneck with me. Tell me what she's going to do, what she's not going to do. And I said, what you can do, get the hell away from my house before I call damn law on you. Because I'm not going to hit a woman, but you're acting real rude and real ignorant. I don't like it. And I went to go in there and shut the door, and she tried to push the door. She tried to open the door from the outside when I was shutting the door. And I jumped back out the door and I got her away from my door. I didn't put hands on her, but I took up the space as quickly as I could. There's my kid, my wife right there, and she's hurling insults and screaming at us. You know, Rachel, call the law. I'm not going to deal with this. And also stay right here, so I got a witness. You know, this woman's. I said, go sit in your car. I'll be here in a little bit. If you're that intent to talk to somebody, I'm down to talk to. We've called them. They're on the way. Meanwhile, people across the street come out and see what's happening. This cop, a little constable, pissant, probably got his ass whooped in high school too many times and took it the wrong direction. Shows up. He's a little constable, little mustache, pasty face. Till he's roided a little bit. Walks up, asks me what's happened, what we called for. I tell him what's going on, including the stuff about the kids in the yard or at night. He's like, okay, well, let me go talk to these people. He goes talk to some people. He comes back. He starts making all kinds of threats to me. Our DA doesn't like people to say racist stuff, and I'll bring you up on terroristic charges against the child. Like, none of this happened, bro. You're out of your mind. I'm visibly irritated with him at this point. I said, bro, I called you. Like, that's some people across the street about what happened. They were out here when it happened. He said, I don't need to ask anybody. I got the whole story right now. And he grabbed me and shoved me up against the wall with his arm up under my neck. And he's like, are you going to get out of hand? And I was like, bro, I didn't do anything. Right? Like, I'm like, you're on one, man. He said, well, I suggest you drop charge. I was like, I ain't pressing any charge. I just told you what happened. I just want this woman away from my property. He said, well, I can't make her leave. I was like, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard, but we were about to have a problem if that's true. And he's like, hold on. And he goes back out there. Well, when he goes back out there, the people across the street come up and talk to him like he didn't do any of that. We were out here when it happened. Those girls were being assholes, screaming, all da da da. But she gets pissed at them and starts hollering at them, starts hollering at the cop, and jumps in her car and drives off with the girls. And apparently they lived down the street about 5 or 6 houses down on the right hand side. My God, what is happening? And he comes over to me. His attitude had changed a little bit by then, but he was still being a prick. And I just ended it as quickly as I could and asked him to leave and went back in my house and locked the door and said I wasn't ever going to call the law again for anything in life. And that is a true story, boys and girls. I do not. Sorry, I got no faith in it these days. I don't call them. I know everybody's like, oh, would you rather call a crackhead? No, I don't have to call anybody. I just try to handle things the best I can in a kind and efficient manner. You know, but I just don't have faith in any of that. Ah, a little pressure. That puts me on edge, right? Wildest thing, like 2 or 3 days after that, I'm like driving back to the neighborhood. Now I like hate everybody in the neighborhood, you know, almost. I got to drive by these people's houses every day. And I drive by the house where that kid that I told y'all about, the one I chased down and had that confrontation with. And I'm telling you, I'm still wild, right? And I'm driving by his house. His dad's out there in the driveway, starts walking. I'm going slow through the neighborhood. And he starts walking out the driveway, kind of sticks his hand out. And I was like, here we go. He's going to find out what that mirror cost me, right? Or let me guess, they're going to call on me. Now I'm going to get my, you know, this time I'm really going to get my ass whooped, you know? I'm paranoid at this point. Like, I don't want nothing to do with any of them. And he's actually really polite. He comes in, he goes, I understand you and my oldest son had an altercation. I said, yes, sir, we did. And I know I was pretty out of line. He said, well, it sounds like he was pretty out of line, too. I said, yes, sir. Yeah, but doesn't excuse the way I behaved. I just, I don't have an excuse. I got hot. And, you know, you want to let me know what it costs to fix a car? I'll fix a car. It's the right thing to do. He said, no, I'm not worried about that. That's covered under insurance. And if the boy's insurance goes up, I'm going to pass those savings along to him for acting like such a fool. It's okay. He said, the main thing I want to know is it's over. I said, oh, yeah, it was over at the time for me. I just overreacted. And he said, all right, as long as it's over, we're good. And waved at me, and I drove on by, and I was like, maybe I'm getting the hang of some of this, or maybe I just met somebody who's really good at being a dad, most likely. Because after every time I drove by him in the neighborhood every day, he'd wave at me. That lady didn't, but he would. He'd wave at me. Funny enough, her boyfriend, the dude that was living there, was like, he looked like probably like late 20s black dude. And his car broke down in front of the neighborhood one day. I didn't know who he was, so I offered to help him. I helped him get his Grand Dam started and back to the house. And then I followed him and realized it was that dude. And then he like looked at my truck, realized it was me, and he's like, no, man, no, I ain't getting into some stuff over over kids acting. So I get the feeling maybe they weren't his kids, you know. But he was cool with me. I was working at Conroe every day, so even spraying Conroe, it's a little bit of a haul. What truck? I was having so many the vapor lock problems. That truck, it was just off and on, off and on. Every time I thought I had it fixed, went through the fuel injectors. Uh, I changed another fuel pump in it because I decided that fuel pump went bad after I tested it. I couldn't get no power to it, and then I started digging off into this wiring harness, and it had all been covered up. But when you got all the stuff off this wiring harness, Pablo Picasso himself had been under there wiring stuff in this truck, and it was very abstract. And I ended up having to go harvest, and it was a weird truck, so I had a weird harness because the dual pumps. I ended up having to go harvest a wiring harness and painstakingly replace all the wiring harness to get the fuel system to act right on that truck. And it was such a pain. And it still would burn up a fuel pump every once in a while. Like there was like a bad ground. I grounded it that thing must have had 25 grounds on it, you know, but it just wasn't quite right, you know. Anyways, this whole time that truck's a constant hassle. I mean, I don't think I've ever had. No, I know I've never had a vehicle leave me on the side of the road as many times as this truck did. I don't know how many times Rachel had to pile a kid up in the car, come rescue me somewhere, or take me somewhere to get a part or something, or a contractor friend of mine, my buddy Terry Smart Jr., Mr. Bob helped me out a couple times. Take me, of course, Mr. Bob got to talk to everybody in AutoZone. Now the repair takes 12 hours, but still I enjoyed hanging out with the man. Tensions are high. I'm all over the place, going through a lot. My business is growing, which is great, but it's also if you've been through it, when it starts growing fast, you work all the time. I'd taken up woodworking, so when I wasn't working, I was at home making stuff in the shop, mostly a lot of pipes. No, I did a lot of stuff. I was making tables. I was doing all kinds of stuff. I was really getting into woodworking, and we were doing fun first kid stuff. You know, the pumpkins and all the all this crap you do. Go out to P8 Farms and take a picture with the pumpkins and the baby. Look how small baby is next to a pumpkin. All that stuff. We're having fun. We're being first time parents. You know, babies are fun. They're a lot of work, but they're fun. They're fun. They're doing something hilarious every day. It's a great time to be alive. And I'm home as much as I can, but I'm getting it. I'm working. So I used to stick old Junie in my lap and play video games, hang out. That little booger. Right before Christmas time that year, my mom and dad, I didn't have no Christmas lights. They gave me all their old Christmas decorations. They bought all new. They were. That's when I told you they'd hit a stroke. Dad's job had super improved. They were making all kind of money, and had built them a nice big house. And they gave me all the old Christmas decorations, lights, and what the biggest part of that collection was a bunch of these wire things with Christmas lights around. One of them looked like a polar bear, like a Coca-Cola polar bear, and it would do this little no, it would do this little head like this. There it is. like that. It was all lit up, had a little boat. There's two polar bears. There's some deers. There were some deer, and they would lower their head to eat and raise their head a little bit, and lower their head to eat, raise their head a little bit. There's a pair of toy soldiers, walnut soldier, whatever they are, the walnut cracker looking soldiers, toy soldiers, and they would move their arms like such with their fancy hats. Put them at both entrances to my gate. By this point, I had built this very nice gate fence because I didn't want nobody knocking on my door anymore. Wasn't gonna have any more of that. Unexpected visitors, be it whoever. You gonna go through a system to get in my castle. There's also a Santa Claus in a sleigh with little deers, and they twinkled, and they're made out of that wire stuff. And my mother and father had come over after Christmas, and this day I'm sure it was something I did or said, but I said something to my mom, and we went off the rails at each other. And my dad had been outside in the garage futzing about, or I don't know what he was doing. I think he was out talking to my father-in-law. My father-in-law Ken was visiting us too. He'd been there for Christmas. And I think him and my dad were out in the garage futzing, talking about tools and old cars and old times and swapping lies, doing what old men do best. And me and my mom got into this consternation. And the thing about I can tell you about my mom, y'all have heard how much I love her, but the woman could push my buttons like no other person on this planet. And she was very good. She would push my buttons until I blew up and made an ass out of myself. And she knew the formula, and she did it that day. She dug in, and I blew up, made an ass out of myself, and stormed out in the driveway. Father and father-in-law in the garage heard all the commotion, went in the house. Mom pissed off. We're leaving. I've had it with your son. He's not going to speak to me that way. Whatever. Blah blah blah. I think all I did was tell her no in a loud manner, but she didn't like being told no. They was making it out to the car. She was making out the car. They had the remote start on the Impala by then. It was fancy. He done remote started it. She done got in the car. She wasn't talking to me. And I'm out in the driveway pissed off. Pissed off. Now this is not long after I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And this is really where I find out what Crohn's disease has done to me. This is where I find out. Because I didn't know how bad it had affected me yet. I'd had my first bout with it, which was pretty scary, but it's nothing like what's happening here, you know. This is where I knew anger was a trigger. Sometimes I wonder if the Lord did that, let me get the Crohn's just to teach me how to have less of a temper. I don't know. That's stupid. But regardless, I'm hot. I'm out in the driveway. She ain't going to talk to me. And my dad, and I may have told y'all parts of the story before, I don't know. But my dad come out in the driveway and looked at me, and the first thing out of his mouth is, "What is wrong with you?" And I snapped. I saw red. And I just decided you ain't going to be right this time. And we both puffed up our chest and squared off in that driveway. I hollered something. I don't remember what I hollered back at him. But he looked at me. He made a decision. I think he saw that day I was ready to go. I knew I was. I was mad. I wanted to fight. Couldn't fight my mom, but I could fight him. And he's pretty handy knocking me around when he needed to. But I was ready to do some knocking back. And this time I felt like I might be strong enough and ready enough to do it. Hot. Somebody's dad now. You ain't gonna treat me like this in my house. Maybe he was just wiser by then. Maybe he was just making the decision he wished he had made with his father and walked away from it. I think it's probably that. For whatever reason, he saw something in me that told him that we were headed down a bad path. And he said something short to me, and he got in the car, and they backed out and drove away. And so it makes you that angry, and then they just pull the plug on the whole thing. It's a lot. I wasn't very good at handling my emotions at that point in my life. And I start cursing under my breath and muttering, walking around that driveway like a crazy person, feeling that rain, that anger overflow. Just see where I was. Couldn't stop it. It's like I could hear a sound in the sound like somebody tearing a paper bag, you know? Just it was just I just saw red. I was so angry. And I looked over and that damn polar bear was looking back at me going, I flipped. I beat the piss out of that polar bear. Beat on that polar bear till it got good to me. Beat on that polar bear till it was just a mash of wire. My bloodlust, Christmas novelty death wasn't sated. And I looked over and seen that other polar bear. He didn't make it. Took the other polar bear out. Still mad as hell. Next to go were the deer. I went full Uncle Bobby on the deer. I beat the piss out of them deer. I stomped a mud hole in them two deer. One of them was a doe. I didn't care. Just went after it. I seen them toy soldiers waving their arms over there like something was funny. Somebody's gonna have to mail flags home to their family. What I did to them toy soldiers wasn't right. I beat the hell out of them toy soldiers. Mash of wire and screaming and hollering and beating the piss out of these Christmas decorations. And I seen that Santa Claus twinkling. He had to go too, man. I beat the hell out of Santa. I beat the hell out of all them reindeer. I don't even know their name. Blitzer, Comet, and Stupid. I beat them to death. I beat them reindeer down. When I was done, there's a big wadded pile of wire and smashed Christmas lights and plastic chipped paint. And I just pushed it to the curb. My father-in-law come out there. He's a big. This is he got me come in the garage and he talked to me, and I can't tell you everything we talked about that day, but he came at me not as a person of authority, but as a person who had been angry at family before and knew what I was going through, and he talked me down. And I, of course, got violently ill afterwards, throwing up, couldn't eat for a day or two, sick as a dog. It turns out anger makes Crohn's disease go crazy, bro. Just tweaks that number. And y'all, some of y'all may laugh because I do the yoga and some meditation, some of that new age stuff I do, but it has helped me grab some peace. You know, I pray that helps me grab some peace. I spend time with my family. I sanctuary with my family a lot when I'm not on the road and doing other things because that is my peace. But it took a long time to figure out how to use it and how to turn that anger down or how to direct that anger somewhere else or how to just stop it in its tracks. How to figure out why I'm getting angry and stop it. And I'm not 100. I still have my moments, but my wife said it to me when we were talking this afternoon. That was the last time I ever seen you really lose it. I might have lost it on a couple job sites here and there, but then I like this. This was just rage. A whole bunch of Christmas lights paid for it. Piss out of them Christmas lights. And Went a couple months without talking to my mom, my dad. We were pissed at each other. You know, I was pissed. I wanted to be right this time. It seems silly and idiotic now, but you can't look. You just got to look at what the tools you had at the time, and I wasn't who I am now. Takes time. You got to chip away at that fire. You got to chip away that heat. Find other ways to use it. Exercise. Get a punch. I had a punching bag for a long time until I tore it up. That punching bag. Whoo! I took some crap. I took some crap out on a punching bag and a bicycle like you wouldn't believe. Different times in my life. I'm about to fix my bike up and start riding it again. I'm finally at a weight where I feel good about riding again. Uh, wasn't too long after that, I busted a piston in that Ford thing. I cracked it. Yeah, it was a cracked piston. Jacked up oil ring, cracked piston. Coming home from work one night, running the piss out of it. Yeah, when I tell you that 351 Windsor was a gut, that thing wouldn't pull the. That was a gutless wonder. I crack that piston in it, and now this thing's blowing oil smoke out like a Sun 50, right? Right up that side pipe. But the neighbor across the street, the dude, he's weird, he's rude. But he also does this other thing. They have an empty driveway, but instead of parking his car in the driveway, he parks it directly behind my long ass truck in my driveway so that I have to figure out how to back around his car without. Yeah, I really feel like he was trying to get some insurance money on his car. He was a scammy dude. Everything about him was scammy. I asked him not to do it a couple times, very polite, friendly manner. He continued to do it. We had another conversation about it, and he basically told me he could park wherever the hell he wanted, and he didn't care how I felt about it. And so what I started doing every morning is there's a little perfectly white car, and he liked to keep it clean. And so I'd back out every morning, throw it down in grandma gear, bring them RPMs up in that 351 Windsor, and just paint that car in oil. Just, I think I did about 3 times before he stopped parking the car in the street. Felt like we came to an understanding. Told you I was, well, I wasn't all there. But that's right about the time we kind of, me and my mom, dad, and Rachel, we all were trying to straighten things out. Of course, we want them to be around, see the baby and all that good stuff. And I decided to replace the engine in Ford. You know what will solve all the problems? I'll replace the engine in that dadgum Ford. That's what I'll do. I went down to Precision Engines, bought me a short block, had my heads gone through. Oh, no, I bought a long block. I bought the heads and everything. Simple. I bought engines from them before when I didn't have time to build one or whatever. Or no, I didn't want to build a Ford 351. I just wanted to put a good rebuilt engine in my truck, get me up and down the road in my work truck. I need to change the engine as quickly as possible so I can get back to work. Excuse me, got something in my eye. So, go down to Precision Engines and buy me an engine, burn half a tank of oil on the way back. Burn at least a quart. Come back and rent me a borrowed cherry picker from my buddy Jay Eichenberg. Him and his lady Allie, they live up in Conroe. They graciously let me borrow it, and I pulled the old engine, and my dad came over and helped me a couple days. There's a picture of old man right there. That's when we pulled the old engine out. And of course, he'd go home, and I'd move all the parts to the new engine that we wanted on there before we set in. I meticulously put back together that stupid AIR system. I'm still not 100% sure that wasn't the whole problem with that truck. That whoever cooked that nonsense up at Ford, boy, I'd sure like to just have one good conversation with him. What in the hell were you thinking? What drug does it take to come up with something like that? Meticulously put that. It took me about a day to figure out and get all back together. Hell, it took me half a day to figure out how to get it apart, even with Skip's help. The engine put together. I put a bunch of new parts on, a new alternator, all that kind of stuff, new water pump, of course, all the stuff you should just go ahead and change out when you're going to run a new motor, new engine. Cleaned my intake meticulously, went through all the fuel injection, straightened out the harness on top of the engine, found out all the harnesses on top of the engine. Oh, Pablo Picasso, again, been in there painting with his brush of many colors. I had a lot of work. I had to go get me a wiring harness. And Dad come back over and he helped me stab the new engine. There's still a lot to be done. Dad couldn't stay over there for days on end. He's got his own job, so let's take the next couple of days and hook everything up, get her finished up. New plug wires, all the goodies, get everything all fixed up. I made myself a little wooden bench because that truck was tall, it was hard to work on, and I'm short and fat. And made myself a little wooden bench. I'd climb off into that truck. There's enough room to get off in that truck, that engine compartment. I'd get off in there and work on that thing. I was a little more spry then, much lighter. I was working on that truck one day by myself. Rachel and Kiddo went off to do some stuff, and unbeknownst to me, my bench had fallen down. I didn't hear it. I had my headphones on. I was working. I went and slung my left leg out of that engine compartment for that bench very confidently, and it wasn't there. And I hooked my right leg on the heater on the course board. There, I forgot I had this picture on the course board. About ripped my leg open, boy. Throw me for a look. My leg over there, there's still like jacked up muscle stuff on the back of my right calf from that thing. Like, every episode, I got to tell you, Rachel said she thinks she got more phone pictures of my injuries than my trucks. Smacked my head on the concrete, knocked myself screwy. They show up, I'm bleeding in the garage. Like, never got that. Got that engine back together. Started driving that truck. Worked again. Boy, that new engine had a little more power, was a little stronger. Wasn't having problems in neighbor across the street. Things are slowly getting better. I've met Bob. I'm getting a lot of counsel from Bob. Bob's helping me out a lot. We're going to get into him in just a little bit. But we decided to move to Conroe. We found a place we can rent, that little house in Conroe, right down the street from my work, 5 minutes away. So now instead of spending, 70 hours at work and another 20 hours driving every week, I'm I'm getting more time at home with the kiddos. At least I think. I think I just start working more. Either way, it's a lot happening. Business was growing. I was getting more referrals. I remember with this, I went to move. We hired a moving company to move most of the stuff in the house, and we had these movers we used forever, 3-men movers, and we used the same crew from every one of me and Rachel's moves was done by the same crew, except the last move to this house and the move to Houston was done by the original crew's son. Was running that crew for 3-men movers in. The original guy was a guy named Arturo. I think he's like a regional manager for them or something now, or he was at the time. But Arturo took good care of us for many years. But they didn't move. I would do my garage, all my tools, all that stuff, and used to go get me a trailer somewhere and move all that crap. Or my buddy David would come help me. So I went and borrowed my buddy Roy, Big Country. He offered to let me borrow his trailer. I said, hell yeah, Miss Roy, I appreciate it. I went to pick up his trailer. My truck broke down. Roy had a little old V6 half-ton Chevrolet single cab standard 4.3 truck, little half-ton. He said, borrow my truck. Well, my buddy Steve had borrowed his truck for a long time and didn't return it in good condition. And I never really sat right with me. Here I am, my truck broke down at this man's house. He lets me borrow his other truck. I don't even work for this man no more. We're just friends at this point. He's already let me borrow his trailer. My truck's vapor locking again. I'm over it. A deep, sinister, inside hatred bond has begun between me and this truck. It has made me curse and holler a lot. He's stranded a lot. I borrowed Mr. Roy's truck. I go move my garage. When I return Mr. Roy's truck trailer, I go wash them and I fill it up with fuel and I bring it back to Mr. Roy because I just think that's what you should do. Somebody let you borrow their ride. I think it's a good practice. Somebody let you borrow a car, kind enough to let you borrow a vehicle. You go wash it, and, vacuum out the inside, and make sure it's full of fuel when you drop it off. I don't care what it had when you got it; they let you borrow it. I'll tell y'all the story about how I met Bob. Mr. Bob's all through this story because Mr. Bob, he's in my ear. I did that. I did them toilets for him. We've become buddies. He's hired me to do all kind of stuff around this place. He's fixing this little house up and this little condo up he lives in. I told you his wife lives off in April Sound, and the house her children was raised in that he has bought and paid for or is helping take care of. I don't remember the exact deal, but he's helping with the money on it. And his kids, one of them lives in April Sound, and the grandkids live close by. He's got roots. One night, me and Bob had some adventures. Bob was just a big old man. He's just a big old dude, right? Crushing grip on him and talked to everybody, just friends with everybody. Had more money than you'd ever imagine this man having, but I told you he wore his old floppy, his old wore out Kansas. He didn't put on airs. He didn't drive van. He always just wanted a decent model, Yukon, Tahoe, some kind of, he had grown fond of SUVs, Suburban, whatever. Nothing too fancy. Not no King Ranch, none of that crap. He preferred GMC. It seemed like he mostly had GMC. I became fond of GMC as a result of being around him. But he didn't put on airs. He's always had this Australian flop hat on. Hey, Jimmy Jerry. Always had something he wanted me to work on with him. I was over there one night. I was painting some closet doors for him on the back of his unit. This little outdoor closet. I'd replaced the doors and I was priming them, painting them with oil paint. Of course, that's a lengthy process. And Mr. Bob starts telling me about all his travels and all places he's been. And there's a little wall and it's got all these little. So when you fly KLM, I don't know if they still do it, but back in the day, they used to give you this little ceramic house. It's like a little ceramic, I forgot what they call it, like bric-a-brac looking stuff. And it's got a little cork in it. It's got Dutch gin in it. And that was like a complimentary thing. Well, he had just brought all those home and he had them on a shelf. And it was just, must have been 100 little droplets of Dutch gin, in these bottles. Mr. Bob's telling me about these bottles and how lady he was fond of had been a purser on KLM. And it's a hard job. You got to know like 5 or 6 languages and you got to be pretty sharp and also nice to look at for the most part at the time. And he had all these bottles from all his travels from when he lived in Holland for a great deal of time and had him a flat in Holland and had it all redone with workmen and such. And I said, "What's in them?" He said, "Dutch gin. Have you ever had Dutch gin, Jimmy Jerry?" I said, "No, I ain't had no Dutch gin." He said, "What? Peel one off that shelf." So I peel one off the shelf and take a pocket knife, pop the top off of it, drink it. It's the worst thing I ever had in my life. I don't know how long it's been sitting in that bottle, but it made my throat feel good. What was that? Bob said, "Let me get one of them." So he gets him one. We chit chat and I keep painting. And sure enough, he goes in the house, comes back out, 2 more of them little KLM houses. Go back to painting. Hell, it's 9 o'clock at night now. I'm lit, bro. Woo. I'm about 6 KLM houses in. I don't know what that translates into regular alcohol, but woo, that was a mess. I called my buddy Terry. Like, hey man, I'm not feeling too stiff right now, and I need to get out. I live, there's no excuse, but I got home. Well, I got lit. Well, me and Bob had some time drinking them KLM bottles, buddy. Them doors come out looking good as hell too. Boy, they lasted a while. One night, Mr. Bob calls me. He knew I lived right down the road. Jim and Jerry got myself in a pickle. So Mr. Bob, it's about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. I was hanging out on the couch watching a movie with the family. So Mr. Bob, well, I got myself in a pickle, Jim and Jerry. Could really use your help. If you don't mind, I hate to take you away from your family. He's always kind. I said, sure, Bob, what's the big deal? He said, well, Jimmy Jerry, the my key doesn't seem to be working on my condo. I wonder if you come here and help me out with it. Yeah, Miss Bob, I'll be up there in just a minute. Grab a toolbox, throwed it in the toolbox. Big old diamond plate toolbox on there. Like all the other contractors. Had a big old stereo system in that truck. What had happened is my brother's cleaned out his storage building, found my big old Sony 1200 watt amp, and I mean, it was big to me. And old Sony Exploder speakers, and a box I had them in way back in the day, and Mustang or one of the cars. I don't remember which car originally had it in. I had wired all that out, put that in the back seat of that F-250, boy. And we pushed some sound in that truck, son. I was trying to think of the song that reminds me most of this truck, but at the time I'd really gotten into the Dave Matthews Band. Rachel had turned me on to them, and I was digging what they were putting down, and I was listening to that cover of All Along the Watchtower by Dave Matthews Band. I can't tell you for sure. They did about 90 covers of it, but one of them was really powerful, really strong. I liked it. And I remember I'd leave the house 29, 20, 45, get on 45, start that song. By the time I was up on the feeder, booming down the highway, all on the Watchtower, just what truck had some sound. The stereo was good. The rest of it was crap, but the stereo was real good. And no mistake, that night when I left I left the house, I was hauling ass every sound, music just blare. Go see what's going on with Mr. Bob, See what kind of work Mr. Bob, what kind of help Mr. Bob needs. When I get to the property, these condo units face the lake, and then their entry doors, there would be a little courtyard of grass between them, and their entry doors would face each other. Mr. Bob owned April South, 62 April Point South. When I got there, Mr. Bob was at 63 April Point South with his truck parked up in the grass in the median and the headlight shining on the door, and he's there in his flop hat and his sweater trying to get into the wrong door and somebody else's unit. So walking up, he's Jim Jerry, I don't know what's going on with this lock. So it worked fine earlier. I don't know what's going on. I said, you okay, Mr. Bob? Because he sounded a little, I'd seen him tipsy before. He seemed a little tipsy. He said, well, I stopped in at one of the wine tastings over at the country club right there in the neighborhood. So, well, I knew all about them wine tastings. I said, uh-oh. I said, well, Mr. Bob, I would love to help you work on this lock, but this lock doesn't belong to either one of us. Because you live in 62 April Point South, and this is 63. And boy, I ain't never, he's a professional. He's a world traveler. He's been around. He's a man's man. I never seen anybody sober up so quick in my life. Good. All right. Jim Jerry, do me a favor and move my pickup and park it over there and try not to mess up the grass too bad when you pull out. And he immediately scurried over his door, got off at the door. I moved his pickup, went, took him his keys back. Uh, he throwed a little cash my way. Don't tell my kids about this. It's kind of, I'm going to tell you, it's about what happens. Happens at Mr. Bob's house, stays at Mr. Bob's house. Boy, he taught me a lot. And the reason my business is growing so much, I can tell you this. Mr. Bob taught me something that continues to save me. He told me one day, he said, everything in business is about pop. Publish or perish. That's what he told me. That was his number one rule. Publish or perish. And I took that to heart. I started writing reports about what was going on about the property for the board. And they liked having that information. And they started giving me more response. We started doing more and they're making more money. And my business started growing. And I would provide people detailed reports about what I thought was going on with their house, what work I needed, what I thought it needed. Solved the problem. And people liked it. People wanted to do business with me because I was trying to fix things the right way, you know. I'm gonna tell you, that's the number one thing that's helped me in comedy. I have a huge library. You can go out there. If you can watch everything in my library, you've done something. Because I have a huge library of entertainment and stuff I've done since I've come back to comedy. And it's because Miss Bob published Paris. I write now with the addition of doing the Wrecking Yard podcast every week. I write probably an additional 5,000 words every week. You know, easy. I mean, I'm in writing boot camp right now. It's fantastic. I'm kind of enjoying it. It's stressful, but it's true. But Mr. Bob taught me that. Publish or perish. Publish or perish. That is the number one rule. Publish or perish. That's it. Doesn't matter what you're doing. Write it down. Explain it. Make your own, publish your own work, your own thoughts. Even if you just put out a newsletter every week of what you think is going on in your industry or how you can help other contract, whatever it is, anything like that's going to get you recognized. People are going to realize, whoa, this guy's serious. Bob was a hoot. Hey, I seen this man. We went over one day. So right across the street from Carol lived this surgeon, and he was kind of a known surgeon. He had this big, beautiful home, and I don't guess to estimate what it's worth or what it was worth. And I'm not going to divulge anything about what Bob paid for it, but I will tell you it's a more expensive house than I might ever going to own, and I'm okay with that. It was a sprawling, beautiful place built by a builder that built it for himself, and he had went all out. Marble floors, you know, big larder pantry, several rooms. The whole time Bob lived in it, he lived in the living room and occasionally his bedroom. He never went in any of the other rooms. He had me fix them all up, paint them, carpet, all that stuff, but he lived in one living room. This dude, the surgeon, unfortunately, his wife had succumbed to cancer. After they've been married many, many years, and he wanted to sell the house and get away from all the, you know, the hurtful memories and such, and just start fresh, do whatever, find him a smaller place, have a big, beautiful pool, beautiful home. Bob liked us right across the street from Carol. In his mind, that I can help take care of Carol, and taking care of Carol was a big priority for him at all times. He hired me to do so much work for her, and she hired me to do work, but Bob would send me over there to work on everything for Miss Carol, and I gladly did it. I adored Miss Carol too. She's a lot, but I really really love that lady. I had some good times chatting with her over the years, but that was Bob's ex-wife, you know, the mother of his children. And he had taken a vow to take care of her, and he still honored that. And I always thought that was really impressive. So go over there. The surgeon's having an estate sale. He's also selling the house. And he's got all his fine Persian rugs and finery and furniture all out there in the driveway. And they got an estate sale guy that's going to run the estate sale. And surgeon's out there chit chatting with the neighbors. And Mr. Bob walks over in his old sweatshirt and his Australian flop hat. And so Mr. Bob kept all his stuff. Back then he had an old money bag, like an old bank money bag. He kept his checkbook and whatever little bit of cash he needed for the day on him in that bag and all his belongings and his tax. Mr. Bob was meticulous about it. He was constantly fighting the IRS. Constantly, and by himself. He didn't hire CPAs. I told you about the Taj Mahal table. Every time we saw the Taj Mahal table when we weren't moving it, it was covered in his tax stuff. And Bob had been sitting in there doing figuring. He didn't like the government getting any more of his money than he was absolutely going to let them. And he didn't come off nothing for him. He was a true battle warrior when it came to the IRS. And I always sort of enjoyed that about him too. I wish I'd learned more about it from him. Because boy, I sure had to fight him, and that was no fun. I won. It was no fun. Don't want to do it again. Mr. Bob walks across the street in his flop hat, his sweater, exchanges some pleasantries with the surgeon. Mr. Bob says, "What do you want for the house?" And surgeon's realtor, or whoever the hell was over there too, and he said, "Well, this is what we're planning on hitting it on the market with." Bob said, "How big is it?" And the guy tells him it's an abnormal amount of square foot. It's a big old home. Jim Jerry, I think I can park all my machines in that driveway. Look at that right there. I can even get my RV over. I said, "Yeah, I bet you could, Bob. You got more parking here than you do over in the condo complex." He said, "You're right about that. What you want for all this stuff you got out here in the driveway, the furniture and the rugs and whatnot?" And the guy, the estate guy and him, they kind of pop back and give a number. And Mr. Bob says, "I don't remember what the number was, but whatever number he tells them is quite shy, not quite shy, but let's say a couple 100,000 shy of what the numbers they'd given him. Still a fair offer." He said, "Would you take all? Would you take that for it or something?" And the guy's like, "Sure." And Bob's like, "So I'll write you a check for it. You start moving this stuff back in the house." And the guy's like, "Okay, sure, yeah, write me a check." "Jimmy Jerry, run over there to my pickup. If you don't mind, grab my money bag." I got his money back, come back. I had to leave, but what I do know is Bob bought that house that day, and they moved all that crap right back in that house. And I told you, he just lived in the living room. He just wanted to be close to Carol and have a big old driveway. And what we did, we epoxied the floor over there. We done everything at that house. just bought the house just so he'd be close to his ex-wife and keep an eye on her and take care of her. And of course, he got her involved when it came time to remodel it. Her and his daughter and his daughter-in-law came over and scurried me around like a church mouse, doing various things for him while he giggled and laughed. That was the Taj Mahal's table. I cannot find a picture of this damn table anywhere. I wasn't a big picture taker then, you know. But that's the first time we moved that Taj Mahal table, and boy, that was some kind of something trying to figure out how to get that thing in that house. Boy, we did some work, son. Still don't know how we got that thing moved over there. And then we put it in its own room. We painted the whole room blue to make it shine more. It was a beautifully painted room. I mean, we did a beautiful job on it. And he put all his fine chairs at it, and immediately 3 days later, it was covered with his tax paperwork. But every time I brought some new fella that's working for me over there, Bob would move some of that stuff, some of that tax paperwork, stick a flashlight under that table, show him through the gems and stuff. I don't, I don't, I don't have, I don't have many pictures of Mr. Bob. Um, what I do have are a lot of stories about him. I was too busy soaking up what he was teaching me. He was one of the first people that he took a real interest in me, and I 100% believe he's a large part of my success now. I do believe the things I learned from him. He taught me to appreciate a little finer automobile than what I was used to. It's okay to like a new truck. It's okay to embrace a little change. It's something with a go to hell bumper on it. He's Mr. Go to Hell. Look at that truck with them go to hell exhaust on it. Taught me to calm down. This is a big change. The changes I was and the guy that owned this truck. And I've told you all the story about what finally went wrong on the truck. And then Mr. Bob sold me that little GMC, gave me help, lended a helping hand, gave me that little GMC, that one of the best trucks I ever had in my life. That little Z71, but that Ford sat in the driveway for a long time. I didn't want to screw with it. I was so frustrated and tired of dealing with it, and I had that nice GMC. I didn't want to jack with that Ford no more. I tell you how Bob helped me calm down. One time I told you about them painter brothers that knocked each other off the balcony fighting, right? One day we're painting his house, and they're about 5 days over schedule, and I get a little hot with them, and probably got a little redneck, I'm sure. Not probably, definitely. And they got redneck back with me, and we all three decided to start a battle royale. And Bob put all of us in our place. Grabbed a hold of my shoulder and pinched down, and I slowed my roll, baby. Dude, Jerry, calm down, step outside. And he talked to the painters, got them to agree to finish the job. And because I was going to fire them on the spot and finish the job myself, which would have been impossible. I was already doing 10 other jobs. Bob goes, "You making, just calm down. Go out there and sit, calm down. I'm going to come out there and talk to you in a minute." He talks to painters, gets painters agree, finish working for him. Me and him make an agreement about what my part of the deal was after he comes out on the porch. And he said, "Just be nice to those guys till they're done with this job." They didn't immediately shit can them. But be nice to them. Be kind to them for the rest of the job. He goes, "I know you pay them fairly, but just be courteous with your words. Watch how you talk to people." He said, "You were being a little brusque with them." I was like, "Yeah, I was." He goes, "Well, they were already hot." And he said, "But it's your job to control that. You're the boss. It's their job to be idiots. You're the boss. You can be boss, you gotta act like a boss. You have to be calm and kind. And then if people are ineffective, get rid of them at a good time for you." Big lesson that night, bro. Big lesson. When I did be there for that job, I shit canned with no emotion. We walked. I feel like we walked away as friends. I may be wrong about that, but I felt like we all walked away because we had been friends prior. Finally, decided my father-in-law was coming to stay with us. I need to get that truck out of the driveway so he'd have room to park his truck. And it was after he had his heart attack, and we wanted him to stay with us a little bit, you know. And so cleaned that truck up really good. I'd changed the fuel pump so many times, and by that time I had cut a trap door in the bed because I got tired of dropping the tank. And I finally changed all the original Ford fuel lines. Like it was a weird thing. You had to buy it all in one piece, and it was really expensive. And I went and got me one, and I changed all that. Put new tires on the back of it. Rhino linered the whole inside of the bed. Cleaned the inside of the bed, all the rust, ground it down. Just coat of paint on it, and rhino linered it. Just cleaned it up, made it look a little better. Took the speaker box out, cleaned the interior up real good. It had a nice interior, dark blue. Had them pretty little slanted windows like the extended cabs in those years did. You know, put some deed on the headlights, make them clear again. A little carnauba wax on top of that. Works for a month or two. Put that truck up for sale. First guy come and got it, I knew he wasn't going to buy it because he brought his little old girlfriend with him. And I could tell she's a fancy gal. They took a ride around the block and then came back. He said, "Well, I didn't know it was going to be so rough." Like, bro, it's a 3/4 ton truck, son. Fix that. It had a freeze plug blow out in it. I told you that story another time, but I fixed that freeze plug. Old fella shows up. Little redheaded dude named Floyd. Old Floyd. Man, I think maybe one of the worst things I ever done in my life is sell that truck to Floyd. I still have feelings of regret. I should have destroyed that cursed vehicle. I should have destroyed it myself. I should have seen to it myself. Made it into a table or something. I don't know, a restaurant. No, people can't go in that truck. It was cursed. Floyd Riddle wanted that truck. I think I was asking about $1,750 for that truck. I know it was around that number, maybe $1,800. Me and Floyd agreed on that. He said, I got $1,000 I'll leave with you right now. He said, I'll come back Monday with the rest of the money. I said, all right. Father-in-law said, you ain't never going to get rid of that guy. I said, no, man, he'll show up Monday with the money. Sure enough, he called me Monday. He had some story about the money. He did come through on Thursday. Thursday, he shows up with the money. And I'm so excited because that truck's about to leave my driveway and I got the rest of my money. He goes to get in the truck, move the truck, and the slave cylinder goes out on the damn truck right there in front of us. Pushes the clutch in, fluid shoots all over the ground. I don't know if you know, it's a concentric slave cylinder. It's that damn Ford Ranger transmission, that 5-speed. And you got to drop the whole, you got to pull the whole transmission change slave cylinder. So you might as well do clutch and everything else while you're in there. My buddy David, he had some A+ transmission connections and a couple of them shops, he was running. And so I called over to his shop that was right by where Floyd lived by the Home Depot on 1488. And I said, how much will y'all charge to fix the slave cylinder and this stuff? And they told me they would do it for me for $750 because I was a friend of David's. So I looked at Floyd Riddle. I said, you know what? I need this truck gone. Can you drive it home? You know how to drive without a clutch? And he did. And I said, well, let's do this, Bubba. Let's get you started. You take that truck home. I'm going to give you $750 back. You take it over to this place tomorrow. Tell them you're the guy who bought Jerry's truck, who knows David, and they're going to give you a deal. They're going to do it for $750. We're going to fix that slave cylinder for you. Floyd said, hell yeah. He took that money back. He left my driveway with that truck. I'm guessing Floyd, they never showed up at the shops. I'm guessing Floyd decided to take that $750 and tackle it on his own. And may God have mercy on his soul. I felt so bad because when I tell y'all for the next, Floyd was the small engine mechanic at the Home Depot on 1488. He was the guy who worked on the small engines for the rental tools. And he had other stuff going on. I don't think it was all the truck, but well, I tell you, I'd have to go to that Home Depot to get materials all the time, and once a week I'd see that Ford truck on the side of 1488 somewhere. Crap leaking out from under it, who knows? So much I stopped going to that Home Depot because I couldn't take it no more. And the next time I did have to go to the Home Depot, it was on their tool rental place. I went to go rent a machine. So where's old Floyd? Oh, they had to fire him. He was late to work all the time, wasn't showing up to work. Like, I'm never gonna pay for this for my soul. Like the karmic debt that I took from selling that truck to Floyd. I only hope that Floyd rid himself of it without injuring another. I hope it's rotting away somewhere. This ain't about brick noses. This is about the worst truck ever made. I hope Floyd got free before it destroyed his life. The thing was cursed. All right, let's do some quick comments and then we'll wrap up and get out of here. Let's see what we got here. Don't, who's this? At Forrest Doan, 1858. Don't apologize for the sound. There's a couple times I got some heavy Jerry Clower fills with the reverberation. Yes, sir, it's a compliment. I'm hoping it sounds much. I think I got this thing figured out. I hope it's better this week. I hope I'm not apologizing y'all at the beginning of the podcast, especially just you listeners who probably heard somebody in a church talking about their papa. But I'm a huge fan of Jerry Clower. He's one of my big influences, of course. Everybody wants to be Jerry Clower. That's all. Nobody told me I couldn't be. And I decided I'm going to try. Love Jerry Clower. Thank you. I appreciate that, bud. Let's see what else we got here. Brick Nose Bandit. Hey, Bub, it's been a week for me, too. Seems like when it rains, it pours. This podcast helps me get through work and take my mind off everyday BS. And it reminds me of when life is a little simpler. Thanks, man. Thank you for listening, man. I'm glad it provides this for y'all. If you take away anything from me, don't buy a car at night. Don't feed a stripper breakfast. Don't buy a car at night. There's 2 cardinal rules. Thank you. Corey Atwood, 764. Another good job, JW. You're becoming a good storyteller. Our lives were not the same in this story except for the bully part, but I still felt very included and everything. Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, man, I was speaking from a child's perspective about Joey, where my little bully back in. I hope he turned out to be a good dude. I hope he had a good life, or some things changed for him. Clearly, he wasn't having a good life either. So I was said some mean shit there that wasn't necessary for that. I was experiencing that perspective again. Um, yeah, man. Uh, yeah, man. I did one or two. I don't even remember now. We're going to do one more. Hell with it. Let's see. At Jeffrey Lebowski 22. Boy, I thought, oh, he's always in the chat. That's so old Jeffrey. Boy, I thought I knew a lot of Merle Haggard. That looking for a place to fall apart. Ooh, Lord, that's a good enough. Yeah, that's one of my favorite Merle Haggard songs all the time. If you get the version he does with Janie Frick, whoo, it'll jerk you right to pieces. You can't go wrong with no Merle Haggard. All right, man. This is feeling like it's becoming more streamlined. I hope it's feeling that way to y'all. And Lord have mercy. I hope the audio's right this week. This whole thing, this whole episode, this whole story, it's about calming down. If you're young and you're going through these times, just calm down. Just I know it all feels like going to battle over. I wish I could get through to my younger self somehow. I'm not sure he'd listen to me, but I hope maybe one of you does. Calm down. Don't waste time fighting with your parents about. Y'all are always going to see the world different. They're a parent. You're the child. That's the way it works. You and your children are always going to see the world different. You know, things are a struggle. But my youngest, he's full of piss and vinegar. He'll go to battle. I worry about that. I worry about that. He's becoming a young teenager. I don't think the answer is to stifle it, but I think the answer is to direct it. But he's also neurodivergent, so it's not like dealing with a normal kid. Which that's the dumbest thing I've ever said. What the hell is a normal kid? Who the shit knows what a normal kid is? I don't think any of the kids are normal. But I'm trying to figure it out. But if I can help some of you young guys, if there's some of you young folks listening, these things you won't go to battle over right now, they're not all worth it, man. All of us, really, man. There's so many people fighting right now. It's election cycle, and this is what happens. And everybody's worked up about their ideals and their beliefs, and there's just this division and anger. And let me tell you something. I've been in a lot of life-threatening situations. I've been in car wrecks. I've been in hurricanes. I've been in fires. I've been in some crap, bro. I've been overseas and seen. I wasn't in their stuff, but talk to them and spend time with. And I think most soldiers, when you're in a foxhole, nobody gives a shit who you're voting for. When you're trying to recover from a hurricane, nobody gives a shit who anybody's voting for. Nobody cares. That stuff is not as important as it seems. I know it feels like the world's crumbling if it doesn't go your way, whichever way your way is. But just God, if anything, man, if we could just be on the side of humans and try to make the change you want to see in the world in your own life, and stop losing friends over different beliefs and ideas. It's because I'm telling you, the older you get, the more you're gonna wish you kept as many friends as you can. At least the ones that are on similar trajectories. Try to just make the change. If you want the world to be a certain way, try to make those changes in your life with the things you teach your children, with the things you express from your own platforms and your newsletters, whatever it is, man. But just being angry all the time is not getting us anywhere. I mean, and it takes a while to figure it out, but damn, it is worth the work. I have such a better life now than when I was so wrapped up in that stuff all the time. I have such a better life now than when I was angry all the time. I deal with things in a better way. I ain't gonna tell you I don't lose my shit every once in a while working on a car or I've been out here working on this podcast, boy, and audio fell, boy, I've thrown some ring fits. But you gotta get to a point where you learn how to turn it down so you can go be normal again and shut it down before it makes you sick. Like these that Crohn's disease and Mr. Bob and my wife helped me get to a place where I'm at peace. Mr. Bob taught me more. He's on one of the list of men in my life that have really changed who I am. He's way up there. He is way up there. It's always, I tell you this all the time, and I really mean it. I am rooting for you, each and every one of you. Don't forget to check out our sponsors. Everyone's racers. Happy Jack. I'll put the email address down there again. I've also got it pinned. Be sure you go check out Everyone Racers. They're doing something fun every week. I'm rooting for you. I'm doing business with people I'm rooting for. I'm very careful about all that. I'm rooting for you. There is room at the table for all of us. There really is. It's not a singularity. It's not a zero sum. None of this is a zero sum game. What another comic gets or does not get does not affect me. I did finish putting my tour together with Sam Miller, though. I forgot to tell y'all about this. So me and Sam Miller are doing a mini tour in Texas. We're waiting on one date, but we know for sure we're going to go to Walnut Springs and hang out with John Clay Wolf. We're going to do a show at the Rattlesnake Roadhouse, which is super psyched to take Sam out there. And then we're going to go to Austin, the Vulcan Gas Company. This is all in January. And we're gonna do a show out Sour Lake together. And I'm gonna be out Sour Lake this fall. I'm gonna go back out to Sour Lake. So if you're out in the area, man, I'll let you know when tickets go on sale because that one sells out fast. Like usually 6-8 hours. It's pretty sold out. No, last night it was like a day and a half, but it sells out pretty quick. We're gonna have a good time. I'm gonna go back out there with Barry Laminator. Then me and Sam Miller are gonna come back through in January, and I'm doing different shows every time. The show I did out at Sour Lake the first time is not the show you're getting this time. And the show I'm going to do when I come back with Sam is going to be a different show. I've just about decided to split my special up into two pieces because I got so many different things I'm working on as a result of writing all this and doing this with y'all every week. Y'all are helping me. I'm rooting for you. Y'all are rooting for me. This is symbiotic as hell. There's room at the table for everyone. It's not a zero sum game. And the minute I learned that, and the minute I really applied that philosophy to everything I was doing, the minute my life started getting better. I'm rooting for you. I'm JW, and I love you. Oh, it's fun. That damn truck. Boy, I wonder where that bugger ended up. I hope it's in a junkyard somewhere, not bothering nobody. Boy, that stereo sounded good, though. All along the watchtower. Seriously, go check that cover out.